Hello, everyone. My name is Moonshine, and I am the host of today's AMA with Dynex. We have a very interesting real-world business project here who also incorporated blockchain into their ecosystem. And it's so beautiful because they use a proof of useful work to solve practical, actual problems in real life. And they have a versatile industries that they are spread into, including aerospace, financial services, and a lot more as we dive in through these AMA. So we have Yeti here with us. So Yeti, can you kindly introduce yourself, your team, and where you guys are from?
Sure. So my name's Clifford Mapp. I'm the head of ecosystem and IT security at Dynex. My job and role is primarily overseeing the ecosystem development path. So that's everything from development of our blockchain to development of our quantum solutions. Overall, I do a lot of AMAs and interviews, but primarily, the better way to put it is that I'm pretty much the person that interacts with the community all the time. Actually, certain people say that I interact a bit too much, but that's part of my role, is to be able to give answers to questions. What we do is not straightforward for most people to understand. It's not your everyday blockchain that we run. It is a very custom solution that we've built. And we're even now starting to look at actual physical hardware that can support on top of our blockchain.
Nice, very interesting. I'm just curious to know, what is the history behind Dynex? What actually made you to decide to build such an ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, that's a fantastic question. So it was 2020. This was a bit before I joined Dynex. The team were trying to build out a ecosystem for doing what we do now on the blockchain. What we found out very quickly, though, was it wasn't scalable. And that's where it started to lead us to look at alternative options. One being that we could either pay a massive 8-figure sum to build out our own facility with our own equipment and everything like that. Or obviously blockchain was starting to become a bit more mature, and we thought, well, this could be the best potential. So we have a layer 1 mineable chain. We are fixed supply, so 110 million is the max we'll ever use. But literally the team decided to go blockchain because of the scalability factor. You think, right, if we had to build it out, every time we hit a limit, we're then waiting for hardware. Whereas if you've got a blockchain, those people just join, they mine, they participate, they get paid. We obviously run a twofold subscription model. So you've got pay as you compute or pay as you go. You pay in Dynex with that. You can do little small computations, or you can do really big ones. Or you can pay for a subscription in USDT, which then we go and buy back the Dynex we need to go do the things we need to do, like pay our miners, like pay our node suppliers, because we're just about to roll out specialized compute nodes. So yeah, I mean, we really are expanding that right now, and obviously there's more to come still.
I think since we're still, we are going through the history of Dynex, and you guys had yet to mention 2020, but they launched in September 2022, and yet just because you mentioned the finite supply, 110 million of DYNEXCOIN, I wanted to ask, how do you guys ensure that the deflationary mechanism you guys have incorporated to the token is kept stable and efficient? Is there some kind of burning being done?
Yeah. So we actually have a full emission curve. It's actually based in our white paper. Highly recommend that anyone wants to have a look. It's all available on our website. Please feel free. Just click the ecosystem page, which is on screen now. And on the left-hand side, there is tokenomics and our white paper. Both cover off our emission curve. how much is out there, how much is still to be mined. Currently, I think it's around 90% fully diluted now. We've got about 10% left of our emission curve, and then we will be effectively buying Dynex to put into the blocks ourselves so that our mining can continue even after our emission curve is up. But it will never go above 110 million. It's a physical hard cap written directly into the blockchain, which anyone, if you run a node, you can very much interrogate the node with a curl command, and you'll see it'll pop up. It'll say 110 million. We've also got our GitHub. Anyone is more than welcome to go look at that. We actually encourage it, and you can clearly see in the code that it is 110 million.
Nice, thanks for covering that, because I wanted us to go through that before we proceed into the actual utility of Dynex. But one more question before that.
Sure.
You guys have a decentralized mining. So how does Dynex team actually leverage the merits of decentralized mining? And will this process include providing liquidity to DEX exchanges to ensure the Dynex tokens are bought and sold at all times?
Yeah, so we actually have CEX listings, and we're on Uniswap with our layer 2 wrapped token. 0xDNX is our wrapped token. The contract's been audited by 2 different firms. We're very much about making sure that we are doing it right. We don't want, I mean, you see it every day of the week with bridges being hacked, liquidity being siphoned out of, bridges and LPs and everything like this. And it gets to the point where we were really nervous about launching our wrap token for that reason, because of the security aspect. So we actually spent the time and worked with Halborn and my own auditing firm to actually go through the code, all of the contract, to make sure that everything works as it should and that there's no holes in the security. One of my main tasks at Dynex is obviously the blockchain security aspect. So for me, it made perfect sense that we obviously audit everything. But we launched as a fair launch project, right? We don't hold huge, vast sums of Dynex. I'm a miner myself, so I mined Dynex. I have some Dynex. But ultimately, when we need huge amounts of Dynex, we have to go purchase them on either exchange or decentralized exchanges like Uniswap. So when we need to buy, it actually drives buy pressure, because we've got to buy up, maybe 25,000 or 100,000 Dynex at a time for paying out for our services. And that leads on to that question you were saying about decentralized networks. Our corporation, our company that we run, is obviously a centralized entity. The blockchain, the miners, and all the infrastructure is completely decentralized. And that was done with the intention of being able to scale. Because if we build it out ourselves, that's not infinitely scalable at all. Because eventually you either run out of space in the building, you can't afford to keep putting more hardware on, the power rates go through the roof. And so it made a lot of sense for us to use a mineable chain. The best bit, though, the bit that's super fascinating, and this is where most people like myself end up going down a rabbit hole, is the extra side to our blockchain, the proof of useful work mechanism. We actually tie that in with normal proof of work. So you cannot do proof of work mining on Dynex unless you participate on proof of useful work for our quantum computation.
Nice. Just to add to that, I think the proof of work actually makes sense, because you guys are planning to solve real world problems. Because I think that is one of the demerits of proof of work. It doesn't have the actual use case of using it to solve beneficial problems in the real world. So I think that's a plus to that theme. Thank you so much for going through that for us. So now, going through the actual use case of Dynex and the use case of Dynex, I see you guys are featured extensively on the website. It was being discussed. Several branches you guys are into: AI, pharmaceutical, aerospace, and all of that. So, which of them actually interests you most?
Oh,
Out of
me personally, or from Dynex's perspective? Because I've got me personally, I've worked in the automotive industry for the last 12 years with my own company in the UK. So I have a bit of a passion when it comes to automotive. I recently went to Mugello racetrack with European Le Mans series to actually showcase a quantum-based race simulator, for example. That to me was super exciting. But that isn't the only thing we do. We have the ability to work within many industries, actually more than we probably have even listed on our website or even thought about. The one good thing is quantum computation is becoming more and more required as companies grow to use computation in a big way. You know, I've recently talked to a pharmaceutical company. They're spending over $1 million a week with AWS. And then when we went to speak to them, we came in way under that, way under that. They were so impressed that obviously now we're starting to talk, well, practical application, proof of concepts, how quickly can we take what they're already doing and run Dynex alongside of it to give them more computation availability, as well as obviously larger amounts of compute per hour. That's one other thing that most people may not realize. In the world of compute, you pay by the hour. So, for example, if I go to AWS and I pay for an hour, depending on how much I compute, it could be anywhere from a couple of $100 to tens of thousands of dollars. To give you an idea, IBM, it works out about $1.20, I think it was $1.20 per minute to run on IBM's quantum machine, whereas on Dynex it is 12 cents a minute. So there's a big difference. And once we started showcasing what we can do to these larger companies, suddenly now we're very busy with the sales side, onboarding brand new clients.
Nice, very interesting. I would say from my end, I think a part that really interests me was the pharmaceutical aspect of it, because in real life, that is what I'm into.
Sure. I
So,
mean, pharmaceutical stuff is massive, and quantum is it works so well with pharmaceutical stuff. Actually, we did some so in the realm of like pharmaceutical stuff, protein folding, like amino acid chains and things like that. That is one of the biggest industries right now for quantum. That sector alone, I would say, is probably a good 30 to 40% of the market right now for use in quantum.
yeah, I think what also caught my attention was seeing how you guys are planning to break through in the treatment of, complex conditions like cancer, Alzheimer's, and heart disease. So I was very curious to know, how would these quantum computing that you guys would incorporate actually help to transform?
Yeah, I can give you a really good example. I can give you
Yeah.
a fascinating example. So you go to the doctor says, okay, I need to send you to go and get an X-ray. How long usually does it take before those X-rays are ready, and then it's got to go back to the doctor, and then it's got to be looked at, and before you know it's a couple of hours, right? And that doesn't sound a lot, but if, for example, it was a real emergency, why not have a system in place that you can compute all of that X-ray data? And bear in mind, we can't see by the pixel. Our eyes are not capable of seeing pixel by pixel, yet a computer is. So we can have it scan pixel by pixel, looking specifically for a problem, right? And we train that system on what those problems are. So if you had a broken rib, for example, if it was only a tiny fracture, you might miss it with the naked eye. But a compute system that can break that down by the pixel could potentially, see those breaks. Or what if you had a cancer cell that was so small right now that you wouldn't be able to see it? It might be able to be seen in 3 months' time, but 3 months is a long wait when you've got cancer. So what if you could actually see that earlier and be more preemptive about treatments and actually, getting these people healthier? So what our ultimate goal is to work with these industries like pharmaceutical, who already have the technology, but not the speed and accuracy that is available, because they're limited by the resources in which their business or their hospital or their medical place can supply. Whereas if you send it to Dynex, you have an infinitely scalable quantum computer at your fingertips.
Nice. Really, really nice, honestly, because especially in specific part of the world, we have cancer killing a lot of people. You can begin to imagine the kind of recognition that Dynex would get if it's to see that these come into actual reality. I really, really loved that while I read through your website. I still have a lot more questions, but we have different aspects of Dynex I would like us to quickly, go through. And I think the next aspect of it that I wanted to know was the industries that you guys are recognized by. It was mentioned that industries like Amazon, Adobe, and all that. So how has this recognition actually had an impact on Dynex ecosystem? And just because I'm curious, and we just talked about the pharmaceutical aspect, is there any of this industry that actually has to do with medicine and all of that? Because that is the only way you can actually bring up these quantum computing into medical aspects to life.
Yeah, that's a great question. So for Dynex, we've looked at obviously AWS, right? Integrating AWS to Dynex so that you can go through AWS and actually compute directly on Dynex. We're in the process of just finalizing that. AWS has a very, very long procedure list and requirement list that we have to fulfill first. We're getting there. We're 99% done now. But then that will open the door for Amazon clients to actually come to Dynex and use our computation. They won't even see it like that. They'll just be able to run their compute and done. So we've also partnered with Octaspace, for example, another decentralized DeepIn project. They supply us rendering services. We actually do some really cool, crazy stuff where we can compute on Dynex, offload to Octa, have it rendered, come back to Dynex, compute it some more, and we can effectively go backwards and forwards between two blockchains. The interoperability side between blockchains is something that I've personally took a bit of an oversee into, because I think long term, having other pieces of the puzzle that we can use makes a lot of sense for us. And so the same goes with pharmaceuticals, financial services. We're not gonna be building software ourselves, right? We're not. That's not what we're intending to do. But what we will do is work with every company that wants to use Dynex to actually integrate Dynex. We don't just go, here's your keys, off you go. We will actually spend 6 weeks onboarding a client so that they're familiar with our system, they feel comfortable with our system, they have a point of contact that they can always talk to. And we spend 6 weeks making sure that they're fully comfortable with our solution. And so far it's been very, very, positive. We've had some good feedback. We've had some, bits that we've had to change, where the more the clients use it, the more we need to refine some of the wording, for example. It's not the technical, it's more how it's portrayed in front of the client that we've tweaked. And that's made a huge difference. Recently the best one is European Le Mans. We started talking with them, oh God, 6 or 8 months ago. And then it finally hit a point where they're like, okay, now we've seen it working. Now we're happy with it. Let's get you to a race. Let's actually test this in the real world. And it went fantastic, so much so that, you know, we signed an agreement to supply them quantum services for next season. I will be at every European Le Mans race for 2025.
Sorry, I had a little network connection back there. So now, while you were going through all of these, and just a very catalog that came to mind, I was beginning to wonder how many are you guys actually in your team, and how many are you guys working on the project, like maybe ambassadors or something? Because from what I'm seeing, you guys might need to employ more people that might have to work remotely. Am I wrong? Because actually very, very broad project, and what you guys are planning to target on is something that is global. These are problems that are global, not just in a specific country or region or continent. So how are you guys going to be able to manage all of these efficiently?
Yeah, sure. It's a valid question, right? You see what we're building and you look at it and go, there's no chance that's a small team behind it, because
Uh,
there's it's a very large, reasonable team. So we currently have 67 employees. Majority of our employees are based out of Europe. Myself, I'm in the UK, but our offices are based out of Europe. So, but we have teams all around the world. We have sales guys in America. We have sales guys in Hong Kong. We've got developers in Hong Kong, Europe, and you know, we're about to expand into bringing in some dev team members in America, for example. So we're always looking for the right kind of people. Always. It's never a bad thing to have more people wanting to join you, as long as they make a lot of sense, right? What we do is not your everyday blockchain piece of code or your everyday crypto project. We don't actually call ourselves a crypto project. We're a business with a blockchain. And we distinguish ourselves like that because you got to remember that there is a full business running the blockchain. So for us, you know, we've got 67. I've actually got it on screen, the breakdown of how that works out. Our leadership team, of which I'm part of, obviously runs the day-to-day operations of Dynex. We have our ethical committee, because quantum computation available to everyone without some ethics is a scary prospect. We don't want to have a point where somebody abuses our system and therefore we have to then shut down the whole lot. That's not going to happen. We're not going to do that. So we have an ethical committee that's made up of 6 people, from varying degrees of different backgrounds and expertise. Those ethical committee members have the right to override any job being ran on the network if it is considered an ethical problem. So, for example, somebody goes on and wants to, I don't know, simulate a nuclear bomb. That would be really bad, like really, really bad. So for us, we have that ethical committee and we have our security systems that allow us to put a stop to abusive use. For example, because we're also in Europe, we have to honor things like, you know, sanctions on countries. We have to by law. So we have to make sure that we're ethically sound, and that we push on making sure that we fight for ethically sensible quantum compute. Open it up to the door is like opening up Pandora's box, to be quite honest, because it really does mean that you had that raw power behind you, bad things could happen. So for us, that's not what we want. Our core team, though, of developers, you can see there, we've got 6 core developers, but we also have some like ad hoc sort of contracted people as well that come in when we require them. but ultimately we have 6 on staff. And then, you know, we have 11 marketing, we have 13 support. So that's our moderators, our support team for our clients and everything like that. It's a fairly large company now, and I suspect by the end of 2025, that's probably going to be 100 staff.
Yeah, sure, because you know, you guys have been around for a while, and what you guys have actually built on is something very, very amazing. So I would say definitely, like you said, you're going to always need a handful of people after good scrutiny. So that's really, really nice. Thanks for answering that question. So I think another aspect of Dynex is the artificial intelligence. Interesting, because through 2023 and 2024, that was an aspect that drove the whole crypto globe and even real life crazy. And I'm sure it's still going to continue in 2025. So, what if someone said AI is quantum computing? How are you going to, explain that these are two different words, and how does it actually intertwine between each other?
That's a fantastic question. I love this. This is where, let's go down the rabbit hole a little bit. But so AI, right? I'm not a big lover of using the word AI because AI is just machine learning at the moment, right? We're not quite at the point of what they now dub AGI, or artificial general intelligence, but we're working on a quantum-based large language model solution. So QLLM, or what we dub Dynex LLM. We're also in the process of building a QELM, or a quantum enhanced language model, which would allow things like AI agents to run natively quantum computation to figure out how that data is processed. So I don't know if most people understand how an LLM works, but I'll give you a very rudimentary and very basic way it works. So you give it a question, and it looks at all those words and the phrase and the question as a whole, and it predicts what you're expecting from that question. Now, prediction models have come a long way. We're not talking about turning around and asking what color is the sky, and it turns around and says pink. Now it understands, because it's got the data there trained that it's had for many, many years. But they're still hitting headroom limits. And you can see that. Look at Elon Musk. He's just had to build an entire data center just for Grok. And that's crazy, because you're having to build massive infrastructure for one chatbot. That doesn't make sense to me. That is in my view, that's a very big waste of resources, because you could have put that into something else, used something much, much more accurate, quicker, and overall a much more scalable solution by using something like a blockchain or a decentralized quantum network. I've had this conversation with many people. They're like, well, you know, they get control over it and everything like that. Well, you get control over it on Dynex. We don't sit there and control what you run. We just make sure that you're held to an ethical standard, which is, you know, fundamentally it should be on every LLM should have an ethical standard. But we also know that there's a lot of people out there that build, and they don't understand the concept of how dangerous, you know, letting loose an AI agent might be if they train it on a whole bunch of stuff and then just don't care about it. It's got to be done sensibly. But AI is in general, right? We've already roadmapped a few different bits that we're going to be rolling out very much in 2025. You've got Dynex LLM, you've got the enhanced language models, or QELM. We've got partnerships with AI agents coming. We've got partnerships with potentially some big large language model users. We're working very hard to try and bring those partnerships into Dynex to actually start running quantum-based AI agents. And those will be the next evolution of what we see now, where they're more accurate, They can run longer without hitting their token limit, where you end up getting what they call hallucinations, because, and this is where most people don't know, there is a limit to how much you can ask an LLM before it forgets what you've asked. It's called tokens. And think of tokens like short-term memory. Short-term memory only lasts so long. And then you hit your token limit and then it will start forgetting. So it'll either do something wrong or it'll try and say something that you know to be false. And that's what we're trying to work on, is to lengthen the amount of tokenization that you can use, and therefore you'd be able to actually do more of that communication backwards and forwards with your large language model without it forgetting.
Nice. Really nice. What I really appreciate is, how you explain in details. And I'm sure those who are listening would definitely be getting the answers to these questions while we have this conversation. So while we're answering the question, I think another part of it that I wanted to ask, since we are on the AI coding and all of that, so I want to just ask, the quantum circuits that are being created in Dynex system uses Python, correct?
Correct. We have our own SDK package available in Python.
Nice. Now, I wanted to ask, because while going through your website, I saw that you guys are trying to create the Grover's algorithm and the Shaw's algorithm and all of that. But I saw under the Grover's algorithm that it's going to be a very powerful application for cryptography. I know we have the classical cryptography. So it was also mentioned on that there that it's going to pose a potential threat to classical encryption. And we know that the type of coding used for quantum computing has classical cryptography. So how are you guys actually going to navigate through this?
Yeah, I mean, there's always a risk, right? When somebody lets loose a new piece of technology that fundamentally could cause an absolute nightmare. It's one of the fundamental reasons why our ethics committee exists in the first place, because that was my exact thought was, oh my God, somebody's going to run a Shaw's algorithm and go after something like Bitcoin wallets, or, hack a network using a quantum-based cipher. It's a worry, but that's why we have security systems in place. When you upload a job to our network, it actually goes through a bunch of security systems that we've developed over the years that will make sure we don't know the exact job you're running, because we don't want to be prying on sensitive data. But what we do is we take a digital fingerprint of how that job is ran on the network. And what we found when we were doing our testing is that if you were to try and do some hacking, that would leave a very distinctive fingerprint on our network. And therefore, what we do is we block that immediately. It's rejected off our network straight away. Now, obviously, Shaw's algorithm, we've recently released circuits for Shaw's and Grover's. But just because those can be used for abusive things, Grover's can be used for database searching, for really fast database indexing. Or Shaw's algorithm can be used for creating a brand new type of encryption. We've even been researching our own variant of a 4D lattice quantum encryption. That's something that's like a personal project of mine, is to look at a brand new form of quantum encryption. Once we get that right and we're happy with it, we'll release a white paper to the world and for peer review. Those kind of things have to be peer reviewed properly, because otherwise, how can you validate the claims that you're making? So we publish everything. Everything is available on our GitHub, or we also post all of our academical white papers on academia.edu, I believe it is. Our quantum specialist, Adam and Sam, release papers on there frequently. And there's some amazing papers on there. But I also think that once we release this new quantum encryption white paper down the road, this is going to take time. We're building a brand new encryption methodology. It's not something that's just going to drop in our laps in a day. It may take us an entire year to develop that. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to develop other projects at the same time. It's just we have a team. Each of our team members has projects that they're responsible for. And therefore, that means that we never stop developing. Because we're a global company, we are open 24/7. We don't close. Even on Christmas Day and New Year's Day, we had somebody working on those days because of time zone differences.
Oh, were you working on that day too?
Yes, I was.
Nice. I appreciate your transparency. Know, acknowledging the facts that everything has risks and how your team intends to handle or implement factors that will help to reduce or mitigate those risks, which is nice. So, in terms of the encryption, because while you were answering, I thought of something which I don't know if it's actually applicable in that means, but we use WhatsApp, we use different social apps, and usually in the WhatsApp, we have encryption. So, as encryption or the encryptions that is going to offer such similar where maybe our next partner with WhatsApp, they are going to offer them a very strong encryption. Is that how it's going to work? Or it's so different from that?
No, actually, so obviously you're talking about end-to-end encryption, right? So P2P encryption, which is what WhatsApp uses. Facebook uses it. I think 90% of the world is now using end-to-end encryption of digital messages. That obviously eventually will evolve, and they will probably need to look at things like quantum encryption keys. We actually have a showcase piece due soon to showcase how a P2P end-to-end encryption message system would work. We're not going to build a whole workable solution, but what we are going to do is simulate the exact way that those end-to-end encryption messages would work. So there's a fairly straightforward circuit that can help with that. And one thing I've learned myself, because obviously I've had to learn how to do this coding as well, is that once you really start understanding how we do our computation, if you can get your head around it and you've got some background in development, this is going to excite you, because it's going to give you a whole new bunch of tools to play with. And as a developer, right, I've been developing for 20 years. Getting new tools is not a everyday occurrence, right? Brand new tools that have never been available. That's something that, most developers can only dream of.
Nice. Very nice. This also makes me want to dive into the telecommunication aspect, which is, I know that is another part of Dynex ecosystem. And I just wanted to say, I know you might be, why is she not throwing questions about automotive, which is an aspect you said you really, really like. But I'm just asking questions,
I don't
based.
know. Just because I've got a personal, enjoyment with automotive, I'm okay with talking about any industry using Dynex. I think pharmaceutical is a massive industry for Dynex. So, just because I've got the personal enjoyment around automotive doesn't mean I'm against talking about any of the other, industries and sectors that we might actually be used in.
Definitely. So now, while going through the telecommunication, I saw some, it may not be looked at as a disadvantage, but I really wanted to know how the Dynex team may thought about around these, which is, we come from different part of the world. So if you're trying to achieve something in terms of telecommunication, if you don't understand how a certain part of the world deals with own telecommunication, it might be very hard to achieve that. So considering that of the world have different networks, have different characteristics that might stop them from getting a very good network or that when it comes to telecommunication. How do you guys plan to achieve this goal?
Yeah, telecommunications is a really fascinating area because there's so many different aspects of telecommunication that I don't even think we've realized that we can work within. We're still learning that for ourselves, but things like working out where phone masts are going to go so that they can, give the best signal to all of their users, or on the fly adjustment of radio wave frequencies for making sure that if one band is slightly busy, that they can make sure that they're always funneling, down a different path so that they don't get congestion. We recently talked with a couple of companies for telecommunications in South Africa, and they were looking at the option of using quantum-based algorithms to work out where every mast for their network would be. And that was a really interesting project and proof of concept that we wrote for them. And now we're in the process of finalizing that and making that into a deal that will be used on the network on a regular basis.
Wow, that's pretty impressive to see that you guys are already making steps towards that. So I saw that Dynex has received some noteworthy awards. Can you give details on the milestone that was crossed to achieve these awards?
Yeah, I mean, we have been nominated for a few awards. We didn't win, but equally so, we've been nominated for awards that we have won. We are making sure that we're trying to be as in the public light as possible. This time last year, I was sitting in the NASDAQ, having a conversation with Bloomberg TV for national TV. And that's something that, we take very seriously, that when we get an award, we're very grateful to that company or that organization giving out the awards. We always like to see, new awards that we've been recommended for, because that means that we're getting the recognition in the industry. The more recognition we get in the industry, the more potential for new clients, new industries, and new prospects for Dynex. And that's good for not only Dynex, but also all of our decentralized mining network. The more Dynex makes, the more they make. And, that's been one of those symbiotic relationships. Not always the best relationship, but we always try to be honest about what we're doing. So for us, making sure that our block explorer, for example, is super accurate with our PoUW job history. I've actually got it on screen. You can actually see every job, and not just the proof of work side, but the actual quantum side is what I'm showing here. So you can see when jobs are running, how much resources they're making, using, how much, whether or not they are long jobs, short jobs. A lot of our jobs finish in like a couple of minutes because the system is so efficient and quick at solving optimization problems that it might only take you 2 minutes to run. If it takes you 2 minutes to run on ours, but 10 hours on a computer in normal aspects, then that's the kind of thing that attracts the attention of like awards and organizational awards for, upcoming kind of technology. So we're looking forward to the next batch of awards. We try and make sure that we're always there for awards as well. We don't just take them remotely. We feel that that's a little bit disingenuous to the organization. So we always like to be at those events. And again, we'll be at a lot of events this year, and hopefully that will attract even more attention. The more attention on the product, the more attention that naturally gets Dynex. And in return, the more attention Dynex gets, the more busier our network gets, which gives us even more compute for our clients. So it's a really kind of circular environment at that point where, you know, one leads on to another thing that leads on to another thing that comes back to the same beginning place. And that for us is our biggest advantage.
Yeah, thank you so much. I do think that I could go on and on, being so inquisitive about different
Oh,
utilities.
we could probably be here for a couple of hours, to be fair.
Well, we have so questions, and I definitely want to get to them because I feel their feedback is more vital.
Sure, I'm happy to take questions, no problems.
We have a question here from Scott Baker. He asked, what specific steps is Dynex taking to ensure its network sustainable and eco-friendly, particularly in terms of energy consumption and carbon footprint in mining operations?
I love that question. So right now, our algorithm is probably one of the most efficient algorithms to mine. To give you an idea, a 3070 runs less than 100 watts. Or if you go really big, like a 4090, you're looking at 160 watts out of the possible 600 that a 4090 can pull. So, I mean, we are super efficient, and we are already working on ways to offset carbon down the road. That's something that our founder, Daniela Harmon, she's very, very keen on the eco side of quantum. She wants to make sure that we're putting ourselves in the best light possible to show that, you know, just because we're doing heavy compute, that we can still be understanding to the environment. So it's something always on our radar. We want to make sure that, you know, our algorithm is super lightweight, super efficient. And we're even got to the point now where version 2 of our system is in the process, and that might even drop another 20% off of our energy requirements, while still keeping at least the same speed, if not faster. So we're always pushing the boundaries of what's possible, and that leads to, you know, lower energy overall, and therefore lower CO2 emissions from our platform.
Yeah, Scott Baker, I hope that answered your question. In fact, I saw another interesting question I wanted to mention during the AMA, because this has to do with neural work dynamics, and this is a very interesting part I saw. But it came as a very simple question, though, from a question here that says, what inspired the integration of neuromorphic computing into Dynex blockchain technology?
Yeah, I love that question. That's great. So for people who don't understand the concept of neuromorphic, it's probably best that that make you understand that part first. So neuromorphic, our network or our quantum side is inspired by biology. Rather than going down the physics path with a universal quantum computer, you know, big thing in a big room being chilled down to absolute zero, huge amounts of energy, and having to be, you know, looked after by many specialists on exorbitant wages, we chose the option of neuromorphic, which is not a new technology. It's been around a decade now. But we felt that for what we were doing, a neuromorphic approach or a biology-inspired approach makes a lot more sense, because our network runs much like a brain. So, you know, you have your central bit in the middle. It spirals out down your, you know, nervous system kind of thing, which our nervous system would be our mining chain, and our miners, they're the core of Dynex. They're our nervous system. And then, you know, the actual compute itself, where it's calculating, that's like the human brain. And that released a lot more potential than we ever realized. We were able to reduce the error rate, for example. Neuromorphic lowers that error rate. And so with biology inspired approach, it just allows us to think a bit more like how the human brain processes. And that That leads to super parallelization. It's a really awkward word for me to get my tongue around. But your brain does that automatically. Even you sitting at your computer right now, you're doing parallel work. Your eyes are looking, your nose is smelling, your ears are hearing. It's all done autonomously. Same principle with Dynex. There are parts of the system that will run autonomously while you're computing to actually give you that data back in the most efficient manner.
All right, so that answers your question. I think that was a very interesting question. Let's see if we can take one more question, because 2 questions I just asked are quite good. Okay, it says, how does the network handle the allocation of computational tasks to nodes?
Yeah, so we actually we run some so slightly different, right? We don't push our computation through nodes per se. We go direct to the miners running their mining software. We have what's called an entangled solution. You have to do proof of work and proof of use of work. The one won't work without the other, right? So we call that our entanglement. It's a bit like actual physics entanglement of an actual atom kind of scenario. So for us, we make sure that obviously we have a job, what's called a job distributor, or a malleable job distributor, or a mallob for short. And that slices up the job into many, many small pieces and then sends it out across our network. And from there, obviously, you're not computing the whole, you're computing a very small bit of the whole. Therefore, we can scale it massively. So if we need to bring on 10,000 GPUs, for example, for a job, we actually bring on more like 10,500 because we know that somebody could drop off our network at any point. That's the downside to a mineable chain. So what we do is we bring on extra resources as our own variant of quantum error correcting. It's not technically error correcting. It's just that one machine has dropped off and then we need to bring on another one to compute that missing part. But our mallob will not allow a job to be complete unless it's got every part of the whole. And the mallob will basically, when it slices it up, it takes a map of all the different parts with an ID and where they were sent to. So if any part is missing, it will re-request that part, bring it back. Once it's complete, you get your compute. So it's a really interesting way of doing it. Obviously, that's the mallob also runs our security. It's like an all-in-one system that we've developed. And it's sophisticated enough that now we embed that directly into our mining stratum process so that it goes directly through our pools and people mining. Now, you say about nodes, we are in the process of building up something called Q nodes. Those are dedicated mini Dynex networks, basically. And those will effectively do dedicated resource jobs. So say an American needs medical data that is under HIPAA, and under HIPAA rules, it has to stay in America. It cannot leave America at all. So our mallob is actually distributed over like 5 different countries right now to give each continent their own access points effectively, and endpoints as we call them. So with that, the Q node allows us to wrap up nicely for compliance reasons. And those are not paid in Dynex, those are paid in USDT, because effectively we're going to be paid in USDT for it. So we're looking at it like you're a contractor supplying us a dedicated amount of resources.
Very interesting. I hope that also answered your question. Other questions that were asked, and those I could not get to, I'm very sorry about that, because I know we had a couple of good questions still under the comment section. Yeti, I think we would wrap up the AMA. We've had an interesting section so far. But I think a question that I would like to ask lastly is what should we expect from Dynex this 2025? Is there any new achievement you guys have in mind to achieve, and or your goals, sorry, rather, to achieve, and what marketing plans would you guys put in place to ensure that these goals are achieved simultaneously?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question, and a lot of the time that's a lot what we have from people asking us right now is what's coming in 2025. We're actually in the process of updating our roadmap on our website. That will be updated very shortly. But we actually have a lot of events that we're going to be doing. One of the biggest ones coming up is Web3 Global. We're actually sponsoring the event. We'll have a stand at the event. So if anyone's in Amsterdam, beginning of March, feel free to come to the event. Would love to meet you. Always happy to meet community members. Really always happy to have a conversation and get deep in the weeds about quantum. You'll soon find out that I'm just a big nerd at heart. It's what drove me to go and actually, research and ultimately join Dynex in the first place. So we've got a lot of events that we're going to be doing. I think we're also doing BTC in Vegas. We'll be doing ETH Denver. We'll probably be doing Token 2049. We're just working out which one to do, Dubai or Singapore. We may even do both yet. Just depends on timing. But we're trying to be as many events this year as possible. We've got our new version of our solver coming, V2. That's in the works right now. That will be completed in 2025. We've got a brand new wallet coming that we're just putting the finishing touches on. It actually launches public beta in about 2 days' time. So that's really exciting. Once we get that out, we can finally, start with our mobile apps. So that's super exciting for me. But yeah, we're just going to keep building. We're going to keep bringing on new clients. And as you can see with our PoUW metrics, each month on month, it's generally been increasing. So that's a good thing, because the more it increases, the more clients are on the network, the more money gets distributed back into the network. So for us, we're not slowing down in 2025. In actual respect, we're probably going even harder than we did in 2024. And that's a lot, because we did a lot in 2024. People might not see it, but in the background, what we've done, like, that's a lot of work for a company of under 100 staff. So, like I say, we expect to expand our staff base probably by the end of the year. We'll probably be up to that 100 mark. We're bringing on some new marketeers. We're obviously working with some marketing agencies as well. Ultimately, we'll be pushing hard this year because we've got to. We're all happy to see that it's looking like it's bull season. Some days are better than others, but we're hoping that we can start pushing, and that's the ultimate goal right now.
Yeah, thank you so much for walking us through. And I think the mobile version, the app you guys plan to have, is going to be very, very interesting. And we hope that the more you guys have these updates, these achievements, and we know in the near future, we're still going to have Dynex back at GOLDDIGGERS to update us with how far you guys have gone. And I'm sure everyone listening today would be so glad to hear from you guys again at GOLDDIGGERS. So thank you all so much for listening. Please ensure you join all their social links on Discord, follow them on X, follow them on, join their Telegram community. I know it's a very, very lovely community team. Everything about their utility is so unique, and I really enjoyed today's AMA. But before I close down the VC, Yeti, I'll still like you to give you the opportunity to give your final statements.
Yeah, I mean, you sort of hit the nail on the head. Feel free to join our Discord and Telegrams. Feel free to ask questions. We're always open to, questions, even suggestions. We have a place in our Discord that's actually for community suggestions, and I read those every day. Like, I take that very seriously. I feel, we should be listening to our community. If there's something wrong or something needs dealing with, then let's deal with it. Or it might be that that person doesn't quite fully understand what we're doing. Therefore, we give them a little bit of education, and that's it. It's solved. But we do, you know, listen to what our community is saying. I do, especially, you know, like I said, I sit there and read through the community suggestions on a daily basis. So feel free to join our socials as well. DYNEXCOIN on X. I'm also on X as well. Just Yeti Crypto, same as my Telegram handle. So feel free to, you know, drop me a line if you have questions, because obviously the more we educate people of what we're doing, the easier it is to understand. What we're doing is not your everyday blockchain event and project, right? When, as I keep saying, we're a business with a blockchain. We're a fully funded business as well. We actually have, you know, a proper business set up in Europe. We do all of our taxes. We have contracts. We have staff on actual employees' contracts. So, you know, we're very different than every other project. We're not launching a crypto project and then trying to build a business around it. We have a business that then we're adding our the blockchain to our business model, and that's a very unique prospect in crypto in general. You know, there's been very few examples of any sort of project trying to do it from business to blockchain rather than blockchain to business. So yeah, we're going to keep pushing, and like I say, anyone who has questions, please feel free to reach out with questions. I'm more than happy to answer them. Obviously, just remember, I do get quite a few questions. So if it takes a few hours to get a message back, please don't think I'm ignoring you. I do try and get back to everyone.
Nice. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Yeti.
And again, thank you for having us.
Yeah, I mean, before I close down the VC finally, I wanted to ask you, Yeti, are you quantum computed? Because your voice sounds quantum computed.
A lot of people say that I sound like a computer. No, I've just got a very low voice. I'm from the UK, so I have quite a deep toned voice anyway. But yeah, people have already said I sound like an AI. But no, I'm legit. I mean, if you want, I'll put my camera on and you can also, I'll say hello to everyone. But yeah, no.
The banner on the banner, which is quite interesting. So I had to go check if you were real, but I didn't want to ask if you were AI because I know you said you don't really like the whole world of the AI that much, and it's quantum. So that's why I asked in terms of quantum.
No, we're not quite there yet of having a fully quantum version of me yet. It's something that we've had jokes about internally about whether we should, to see if we can actually pass off an AMA with an AI and completely play it off and see if it'll actually work, just for the fun of it. We'd do it internally, like as a AMA on our own Discord, but it would be funny to see if we could actually pass it off as real.
All right. Thank you so much, Yeti. Thank you, everyone. It was an awesome AMA. See you guys. We'll have 2 more AMAs, one tomorrow and one next tomorrow. And these are all utility projects. So do your own research about Dynex. Is a very nice project, but I'm not giving any financial advice. It would be good for you to give thorough research. Go listen to this AMA once again and follow the socials. Thank you all so much. Bye.
Take care, guys.